All right, you guys asked for it, so here it is. More theme park rides that killed people, part 2, and 2 of them happened just in the past 2 years. So this here is the Batman coaster at Six Flags in Georgia, and in 2008, after riding the ride, a teenager lost his hat. He decided he was going to go down and retrieve it. So he went over several fences that said, please stay out, don't cross this line, don't cross this line. And obviously he wouldn't have made it on this list if he didn't cross the line. So unfortunately he did. He ended up going there to get his hat, and in the process of doing so, he was decapitated by the ride. As you can see, the ride is pretty low to the ground, so if you're standing here trying to get your hat and it swings around, you pretty much have no hope. Did he get his hat? I don't know. And again, in 2002, this ride also knocked somebody in the head. A groundskeeper was down there in the restricted area when the ride came by, and somebody's leg dangling smacked him in the head, killing him. I don't know if he was decapitated, but the actual rider ended up breaking their leg as well. Right, next up, we have the Superman Ride of Steel, or what's been renamed the Ride of Steel. This one has a very interesting past and history. So this is a similar ride at 2 different locations. So in 2004, a 55-year-old man with cerebral palsy was allowed to board the Superman Ride of Steel in Agawam, Massachusetts. And if I mess up that name, I apologize to Massachusettsans. At the end of, he ended up falling to his death. He fell out of the ride and died. But again, in 2011, an Army veteran who'd lost both his legs in Iraq fell to his death on the exact same ride. They're very similar rides, just in 2 different locations at Six Flags. And he lost his life in Darien, New York. They say that the ride had the same design. And the crazier story about all this is that in 1999, another man had fallen out of the ride, but he only suffered broken hips. I know I say only, but yeah, he ended up getting broken hips from it. So you would think they would have made some safety updates to the ride, but they didn't, and 3 people have fallen off this ride. This is now the Raging River in Adventureland, Iowa in 2021. This is a newer one where the family went to celebrate the 16-year-old son's birthday when tragedy struck. While riding on the Raging River ride, the float actually flipped over, but on this ride they have seatbelts, and the 11-year-old and 16-year-old that they were with were strapped together and stuck underneath the ride. The mom and dad were flung from it. A man on one of the other inner tubes and some crew workers jumped in to try and save them, and the witnesses account that the kids were underwater for 7 to 10 minutes. After arriving at the hospital, the 11-year-old was pronounced dead, but miraculously, after being put in a medically induced coma, the 16-year-old survived and was able to leave the hospital after a month. And finally, in my home state of Florida, the Orlando Freefall ride had a 14-year-old fall to his death after not being properly fastened. The ride, which has a weight limit of 285 pounds, allowed the 383-pound teenager to get on it and then didn't properly close his safety harness. The drop's a 430-foot drop, and as it stopped, he fell right out of the ride onto the concrete. You can see videos of it online, but I'm not going to show them on this channel. In a shocking move, the owner of the ride's not going to shut it down, and he's going to open a slingshot ride as well.